Everything happened here at the hotel. After my high school reunion, my husband and my ex-girlfriend reconnected. I saw them together at the reunion hotel. Old flames reignited in room 417, door cracked open. Could you ever forgive such a betrayal? Tampa, Florida, summer of 2025. The air hung thick and heavy, the kind of heat that clings to you like a second skin. My 20-year high school reunion. 20 years. It felt like a lifetime, and simultaneously like yesterday I was cramming for Mr. Henderson's history test. I was 36, a real estate agent, reasonably successful, married to Nate for 10 blissful years, or so I thought. My hands were sweating, clutching my clutch a little too hard. I never expected this reunion, this celebration of the past, to reopen wounds I thought had long healed. Wounds I didn't even realize were still raw. Nate, bless his heart, was trying to be supportive. He knew how much I dreaded seeing Jessica again. Jessica, my ex-girlfriend, my first love, the one who broke my heart into a million tiny pieces back in senior year. Relax, he'd said, squeezing my hand a little too tightly. It's just a party, besides. I'll be right there with you. He had that reassuring smile, the one that always melted my worries away. Or at least, it used to. The hotel ballroom buzzed with the familiar cacophony of forced laughter and strained conversation. Faces were older, some a little rounder, some sporting new hairlines. But beneath the surface, I could still recognize the ghosts of teenagers past. There was Mark Peterson, the class clown, still cracking jokes, though his eyes seemed a little sadder. There was Sarah Miller, the shy bookworm, now a successful lawyer, radiating confidence. And then there was Jessica. She hadn't changed much, still effortlessly beautiful, with that same mischievous glint in her eyes. Her dark hair cascaded down her shoulders, framing her face perfectly. She looked good, too good, as if the last 20 years hadn't touched her. We exchanged polite greetings, the kind that felt like walking on eggshells. The tension was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Nate, ever the peacemaker, attempted to steer the conversation towards safer territory. The weather, the DJ, the questionable buffet selection. But Jessica kept her eyes fixed on me, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. It was unsettling. As the evening wore on, the drinks flowed freely. Nate and Jessica seemed to be getting along surprisingly well. Too well, perhaps. They were laughing, sharing stories, their heads close together. I tried to join in, to be part of the group, but I felt like an outsider looking in. A strange, uncomfortable feeling washed over me. Later that night, after several glasses of wine, Nate and Jessica disappeared, just vanished. 1 minute they were there, I told myself not to panic. Maybe they'd stepped outside for some air. Maybe they were catching up in a quieter corner of the ballroom. But a nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach told me something was wrong, terribly wrong. I searched the ballroom, then the lobby, then the hotel bar. No sign of them. My anxiety was escalating, spiraling out of control. What if something had happened? What if one of them was hurt? What if... The thought was too painful to even consider. I knew it was a long shot, but I had to do something. I started with the 4th floor, randomly knocking on doors, apologizing profusely to the startled guests who answered. My heart pounded in my chest with each step. Then I reached room 417. The door was slightly ajar. A sliver of light spilled out into the hallway. I hesitated, my hand trembling as I reached for the doorknob. I pushed it open, and my world shattered. There they were, Nate and Jessica, in room 417. The door was cracked open. Old flames reignited, my husband and my ex-girlfriend, together. Could you breathe if your heart was ripped from your chest? I don't think I could. What would you have done? The images burned into my brain. Jessica was laughing, her hand resting on Nate's arm. Nate was leaning in, his eyes locked on hers. They looked happy, happier than I'd seen him in years. It was like I wasn't even there. I stumbled back, gasping for air, my vision blurring. I couldn't speak, I couldn't move. I could only stare, paralyzed by disbelief and betrayal. Nate turned, his face draining of color as he saw me standing there. What are you doing here?" he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. Jessica simply smirked, a knowing look on her face. Well, she said, her voice dripping with false innocence. "Look who decided to join the party." The Nate insisted it was all a misunderstanding, that they were just talking, that nothing happened. But the look on his face told a different story, a story of guilt, shame, and regret. Jessica, on the other hand, seemed to revel in my pain. She reveled in it. She confessed that she'd never gotten over me, that she'd been waiting for this moment for 20 years, that she'd manipulated Nate, using secrets from their college days to lure him into her web. College secrets? What college secrets? I didn't even know they knew each other in college. I left the hotel that night, my heart shattered, my trust betrayed. The drive home was a nightmare, a blur of headlights and tears. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to trust. I only knew that my life had irrevocably changed. The bar, Nate begged for forgiveness, claiming it was a moment of weakness, a drunken mistake. He swore he loved me, that he wanted to make things right. But the damage was done. The trust was broken. How could I ever look at him the same way again? Could you? Jessica, meanwhile, continued to taunt me, sending cryptic text messages, posting suggestive photos on social media. It was like she was trying to rub my face in her victory, to make sure I knew she had won, that she had taken what was mine. I tried to talk to my friends, to confide in my family, but no one seemed to understand. They told me to forgive Nate, to move on. They said Jessica was just trying to get a rise out of me, but it wasn't that simple. This wasn't just a drunken mistake or a childish rivalry. This was a deep, fundamental betrayal. One afternoon, while I was going through Nate's things, trying to find some answers, some explanation, I found a hidden letter, tucked away in the back of his closet, behind a pile of old sweaters. The envelope was addressed to Jessica. My hands trembled as I opened it, my heart pounding in my chest. The handwriting was Nate's, but the words were disturbing. In the letter, Nate confessed his undying love for Jessica. He wrote about how he regretted letting her go all those years ago, how he'd always carried a torch for her, how he was willing to leave me for her. The letter was dated a few weeks before the reunion, before he even knew Jessica was going to be there. This wasn't a drunken mistake. This was a planned betrayal, a calculated act of cruelty. I felt a surge of anger, hot and intense, coursing through my veins. I wanted to scream, to shout, to break things, but instead I just sat there, numb, staring at the letter. How could he? How could he do this to me? After 10 years of marriage? After all we'd been through together? The rain was hitting the windows, mimicking the storm inside me. I read the letter again, searching for some sign, some clue that would explain his actions. And then I saw it. A small, almost imperceptible footnote at the bottom of the page, a reference to a college secret and the phrase non-disclosure agreement. Non-disclosure agreement? What did that mean? What college secret could be so damaging that it required a legal document? And why was Nate involved? My mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle. I decided to confront Nate. I waited for him to come home from work, my heart pounding with anticipation and dread. When he walked through the door, he looked tired, defeated. He knew I'd found the letter. "I can explain," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Explain what?" I snapped, my voice trembling with rage. "Explain why you wrote this disgusting letter to my ex-girlfriend? Explain why you've been lying to me for weeks? Explain what this college secret is all about?" Nate hung his head, avoiding my gaze. "It's complicated," he said. "Complicated," I repeated, my voice rising. "Is that all you have to say?" "This isn't just complicated, Nate. This is a betrayal of everything we've ever stood for. Please just let me explain, he begged. It's not what you think. I hesitated. A part of me wanted to believe him. A part of me wanted to salvage our marriage, to rebuild our life together. But another part of me, the part that had been burned and betrayed, couldn't trust him, not anymore. Tell me everything, I said, my voice cold and unwavering. Every detail, every lie, every secret. And so, he did. He told me the whole story from beginning to end. A story of youthful indiscretions, reckless decisions, and a secret that had haunted him for 20 years. It turned out that Nate and Jessica had been involved in a prank during their freshman year of college. A prank that went horribly wrong, resulting in a serious injury to another student. They had covered it up, burying the truth deep beneath a web of lies and deceit. Jessica had always held that secret over Nate's head, using it to manipulate him, to control him. She threatened to expose him, to ruin his life, if he didn't do what she wanted. That college secret was the accident. And what did she want? She wanted him. She wanted to destroy my marriage and reclaim her hold over him. She claimed I stole him from her. The non-disclosure agreement was an attempt by Nate to silence the victim of the prank, to prevent him from going to the authorities. He had paid him off, using money he'd secretly withdrawn from our joint account, $15,500. I was trying to protect you, Nate pleaded. I didn't want you to get dragged into this mess. Protect me, I scoffed. By lying to me? By betraying me? By stealing our money? He had no answer. He just stood there, silent and ashamed. I spent the lies, the secrets, the betrayal. It was almost too much to bear. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of anger, sadness, and confusion. I considered leaving Nate, filing for divorce, cutting him out of my life completely, but then I thought about the consequences. What would happen to our house, our finances, our future? And then I thought about the victim of the prank, the student whose life had been forever altered by Nate and Jessica's reckless actions. He deserved justice. He deserved to know the truth. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I contacted a lawyer, a fierce, no-nonsense woman named Sarah, who had been a year ahead of us in high school. Sarah was shocked by the story, but she was also determined to help me. Together, we gathered evidence, piecing together the truth about the college prank and the subsequent cover-up. We tracked down the victim, who had spent the last 20 years struggling with chronic pain and emotional trauma. The more I learned, the angrier I became, not just at Nate and Jessica, but at the entire system that had allowed them to get away with their crime for so long. Sarah advised me to go to the police, to file charges against Nate and Jessica, but I hesitated. I knew that if I did, it would ruin their lives. They would face jail time, financial ruin, and social ostracism. Could I do that to them? Even after everything they'd done to me. I wrestled with my conscience, torn between my desire for revenge and my sense of justice. What would you do? One evening, while I was working late at the office, I received a strange package in the mail. It was a plain, unmarked envelope with no return address. My heart pounded in my chest as I opened it, my hands trembling. Inside, I found a single sheet of paper, a threatening note. "Drop the investigation," it read, "or you'll regret it." The words were scrawled in a crude, uneven hand. The message was clear. Someone wanted me to back down. Someone was willing to resort to intimidation to protect their secrets. A wave of fear washed over me. Who had sent the note? Nate? Jessica? Or someone else entirely? I showed the note to Sarah, who immediately advised me to contact the police. She was worried about my safety. I didn't want to involve the police. I didn't want to escalate the situation again. I knew that I was playing a dangerous game, but I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. I started by doing some digging into Jessica's background. I discovered that she had a history of manipulative behavior, a pattern of using people to get what she wanted. She had a reputation for being ruthless, ambitious, and completely without remorse. I also learned that she had been struggling financially for years. Her business was failing, her debts were mounting, and she was desperate for money. That's when it hit me. The reunion wasn't just about rekindling old flames. It was about money. Jessica needed money, and she thought she could get it from Nate. By blackmailing him, by threatening to expose his secret, she hoped to squeeze him dry. I realized that I had underestimated Jessica. She wasn't just a jealous ex-girlfriend. She was a con artist, a manipulator, a dangerous woman. I knew I had to be careful. I knew I couldn't trust anyone, not even Nate. I decided to confront Jessica directly. I called her and arranged to meet her at a local cafe. A cafe with wooden tables and coffee aroma. I wanted to look her in the eye and tell her that I knew her game, that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. When I arrived at the cafe, Jessica was already there, sitting at a table by the window. She looked relaxed, confident, almost smug, as if she knew she had me right where she wanted me. "So," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "what brings you here? I know what you're up to, Jessica. I know about the college prank. I know about the non-disclosure agreement. And I know about your financial problems." Jessica's face paled. She hadn't expected me to know so much. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't play coy with me," I said. "I have proof. I have witnesses, and I'm not afraid to use them." Jessica's eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't," she said. "Try me," I replied. A tense silence hung in the air, thick and heavy. I could see the wheels turning in Jessica's head. She was trying to figure out how much I knew, how much evidence I had. "Okay," she said, her voice resigned. "You win. I'll back off. I'll leave Nate alone. Just, please don't go to the police." I hesitated. A part of me wanted to see her punished, to see her pay for her crimes. But another part of me felt a flicker of pity. I knew that if I went to the police, it would ruin her life. "I'll make you a deal," I said. "You leave Nate alone. You pay back the $15,500 that he stole from our account, and you sign a confession, admitting to everything you've done." Jessica looked surprised. She hadn't expected me to be so lenient. "And if I don't?" she asked. "Then I'll go to the police," I said. "And I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life behind bars." Jessica thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay," she said. "You have a deal." True to her word, Jessica backed off. She left Nate alone, she repaid the stolen money, and she signed a confession. I didn't go to the police. I decided to let it go, to move on with my life. Nate and I had a long, difficult conversation. He apologized profusely for his actions. He begged for my forgiveness. I told him that I needed time, that I didn't know if I could ever fully trust him again. But I was willing to try. We started going to couples therapy. We worked on rebuilding our communication, our trust, our intimacy. It was a slow, painful process, but we made progress. Over time, I began to heal. The scars of betrayal remained, but they faded. I learned to forgive Nate, not just for his sake, but for my own. I realized that holding on to anger and resentment would only poison my own life. That forgiveness was the only way to move forward. In the end, Nate and I stayed together. Our marriage was stronger, more resilient than ever before. We had weathered the storm, and we had emerged on the other side, scarred but not broken. Jessica, on the other hand, disappeared. She moved away, changed her name, and started a new life. I never saw her again. Sometimes, I wonder what became of her. I wonder if she ever learned from her mistakes. I wonder if she ever found happiness. But most of the time, I just try to focus on my own life, on my marriage, on my career, on my future. I learned a lot from this experience. I learned that secrets can destroy lives. That betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. And that forgiveness is the most powerful weapon of all. And so, here I am today. I'm still with Nate, believe it or not. He made a mistake. We all do. But he has worked very hard to rebuild our marriage. And I believe he has. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of therapy, a lot of talking, and a lot of forgiveness on my part. But we are stronger than ever. We learned from it. I think that is the most important thing. Sometimes things happen in our lives that are so incredibly painful and hard to cope with. But if you can find a way to learn from them and move forward, you can come out on the other side a better person. I honestly think that's what happened to us. Jessica, well, I don't know where she is. I try not to think about her. I forgave her, but I also moved on. She is no longer a part of my life. So that's my story. It's a long and complicated one, but it's mine. And I'm sharing it with you because I think it's important to talk about these things. To talk about betrayal, forgiveness, and the power of resilience. Have you ever been betrayed? How did you deal with it? What choices would you make? I hope my story has resonated with you. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Write what you would choose. One thing I haven't mentioned, and it's been weighing on me, is my mom. She always seemed to subtly favor Jessica, even after everything that happened between us in high school. It was like she saw something special in Jessica that she didn't see in me. It always stung a little, to be honest. After the reunion, after everything came to light, I tried to talk to my mom about it. I needed her support, her understanding. I needed her to tell me that I wasn't crazy, that Jessica was in fact a manipulative, well, but my mom just brushed it off. "Oh, honey," she said, patting my hand. "You're just being dramatic. Jessica always had a good head on her shoulders. Maybe Nate just needed someone who understood him better." Could you believe it? My own mother siding with the woman who tried to destroy my marriage. I felt like I was taking crazy pills. So naturally, I backed off and didn't push it further. I went to my family's vacation house on the coast and planned to decompress from the entire nightmare. The house was old, built by my grandparents, with creaky floors and faded wallpaper, but it was also filled with memories, happy memories. Memories of summer vacations, family gatherings, and simpler times. I'd hoped being there would bring me peace, clarity. But the past has a funny way of catching up with you, doesn't it? The day I was supposed to leave the vacation home and return to Tampa, I found something wedged between the mattress and the bed frame in the guest bedroom. A photograph. An old photograph. A photograph of my mom and Jessica.